2 Samuel chapter 17. Hushai's counsel. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Let me choose 12,000 men that I may set out and pursue David tonight. I will attack him while he is tired and discouraged and throw him into a panic. All those who are with him will flee, so I will strike down only the king. Then I will bring all the people back to you as a bride is brought home to her husband. Seek the death of only one man, and then all the people will be unharmed." The advice pleased Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Then Absalom said, "Call in Hushai the Archite to hear what he has to say." When Hushai came before Absalom, Absalom asked him, "Ahithophel has given this advice. Shall we follow it? If not, you speak." So Hushai said to Absalom, "This time Ahithophel's advice is not good. You know that your father and his men are warriors. When enraged, they are like a bear robbed of her cubs in the field. Besides, your father is expert enough in war not to spend the night with his men. Right now he is hiding in one of the caves or in some other place. If some of your men fall in the first attack, whoever hears of it will say, 'There has been a slaughter among the men who follow Absalom.' Then even the valiant man whose heart is like that of a lion will utterly melt with fear. For all Israel knows that your father is a warrior, as are the men who are with him. My advice is that you gather all the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba, as many as the sands on the sea, and go to battle in person. Then we shall find him wherever he is and fall on him as the dew falls on the ground. Neither he nor any of his men will be left alive. If he withdraws into the city, all Israel will bring ropes and drag the city into the valley until not even a pebble of it remains." Absalom and all the Israelites said, "The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel." For the Lord had decreed that the good counsel of Ahithophel be defeated, so that he might bring evil upon Absalom. Then Hushai reported to the priests Zadok and Abiathar, "Ahithophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel in this way, but I have advised them in this manner. Therefore send word to David quickly, 'Do not lodge tonight at the desert forts. Go beyond them, lest the king and all the men with him be trapped.'" Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz were waiting at En-Rogel. A maidservant was to go and report to them, and they were to go and tell King David, for they could not take the risk of being seen in the city. But the lad saw them and reported to Absalom. The two hurriedly left the place and entered the house of a man of Bahurim, who had a well in his courtyard, and they got down into it. The woman took a covering and spread it over the well's mouth, then scattered grain over it, so that no one would notice anything. When Absalom's servants came to the woman's house, they asked, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" The woman answered, "They have just gone towards the brook." They looked for them but could not find them, and so they returned to Jerusalem. After they had gone, the men came up out of the well and went to tell David, "Hurry and cross over the river, for this is what Ahithophel has counseled against you." So David and all those who were with him crossed over the Jordan. By daybreak not one was left who had not crossed the Jordan. When Ahithophel saw that his advice was not followed, he saddled his ass and rode back to his own city. After setting his house in order, he hanged himself and he died. He was then buried in the tomb of his father. David had already entered Mahanaim when Absalom crossed the Jordan with all the Israelites. Absalom had put Amasa in charge of the army instead of Joab. Amasa was the son of Ithra, an Ishmaelite who had married Abigail, the daughter of Nabash, sister of Zeruiah, the mother of Joab. The Israelites and Absalom pitched camp in the land of Gilead. When David arrived at Mahanaim Shobi, son of Nahash from Rabbah of the Ammonites, and Machir, son of Ammiel from Lodibar, and Barzillai the Gileadite from Rogelim, brought beds, basins, and earthen vessels. They also brought wheat, barley, flour, roasted grain, beans, lentils, honey, curds, sheep, and cheese from the herd. All this was for David and the people with him to eat, for they said, "The people are hungry, weary, and thirsty in the desert." 2 Samuel chapter 18, Defeat and Death of Absalom. David then mustered the men who were with him and set over them commanders of 1,000 men and commanders of 100 men. He sent forth the army, of which 1/3 was under the command of Joab, 1/3 under the command of Abishai son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the command of Ittai the Gittite. Then the king said to the men, "I myself will go out with you." But the men replied, "You shall not go out." They could not care less if we flee or if half of us die. "But you are worth 10,000 of us, and it is better if you are able to send us assistance from the city." So the king said to them, "I will do whatever seems best to you." Then the king stood by the side of the gate while the entire army marched out by hundreds and by thousands. The king ordered Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, "Do not hurt the young man Absalom for my sake." All the army heard the king giving orders to all the commanders concerning Absalom. The army of David went out into the field against Israel. The battle was fought in the forest of Ephraim, where the Israelites were defeated by the men of David. The slaughter there on that day was great, numbering 20,000 men. The battle spread over the entire country, and more people perished in the ravines of the forest than were killed by the sword that day. Absalom was riding a mule and happened to meet the guards of David. As the mule passed under the thick branches of a big oak tree, his head was caught in the oak tree, and he was left hanging between heaven and earth, while the mule he was riding went its way. Someone saw this and reported to Joab, "I saw Absalom hanging from an oak tree." Joab said to the man who reported this, "What? You saw him but did not strike him at once? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a belt." But the man answered Joab, "Even if I felt it in my head the weight of 1,000 shekels of silver, I would not raise my hand against the king's son. For we heard the king command you, Abishai and Ittai, for my sake spare the young man Absalom. If I had disobeyed the king and killed Absalom, the king would come to know about it, and you yourself would have kept your distance." Joab replied, "I will not waste time talking with you." So he took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them into Absalom's heart while he was still alive in the oak tree. Then 10 guards, Joab's armor-bearers, surrounded Absalom and struck him down. Joab blew the trumpet, and the troops stopped pursuing the Israelites as Joab restrained them. They then took Absalom, threw him into a deep pit in the forest, and covered him with a great heap of stones. In the meantime, all the Israelites fled, each one to his own home. During his lifetime, Absalom had a memorial erected for himself in the king's valley, for he said, "I have no son by whom my name may be remembered." He called the pillar after his own name, and to this day it is called Absalom's monument. David is informed of Absalom's death. Then Ahimaaz the son of Zadok said, "Let me run and report to the king that the Lord has delivered him from the power of his enemies." But Joab said to him, "Today you will not be a bearer of good news. Another day you may do so. But today there is no good news, because the king's son is dead." Joab then said to a Cushite, "Go tell the king what you have seen." The Cushite bowed before Joab and ran. But Ahimaaz son of Zadok again said to Joab, Come what may, let me also run behind the Cushite. Joab asked, Why must you run, my son, seeing that you will have no reward for this news? Ahimaaz insisted, It does not matter, I will run. So Joab allowed him to go, and Ahimaaz ran by way of the plain, outrunning the Cushite. David was sitting between the two gates. The watchman went up to the roof of the gate by the wall, and he saw a man running alone. So he called out and reported to the king, who said, If he is alone, he brings good news. As he was drawing near, the watchman saw another man running. So he called to the gatekeeper and said, Look, another man is running alone. The king said, He also brings good news. The watchman said, The first man runs like Ahimaaz, son of Zadok. The king replied, He is a good man, so he comes with good news. Then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, All is well. Bowing before the king with his face to the ground, he said, Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delivered up the men who rebelled against my lord the king. The king asked him, How is the young man Absalom? Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent your servant, I saw a great tumult, but did not know what it was all about. So the king said, Move away and stand here. He moved aside and stayed there. The Cushite arrived and said, Good news for my lord the king. The Lord has done you justice today and saved you from all those who rebelled against you. The king asked the Cushite, How is the young man Absalom? The Cushite answered, May the enemies of my lord the king and all who rebel against you end up like that young man. Psalm 129. Prayer for the overthrow of Israel's enemies. They have oppressed me cruelly from my youth. Let Israel repeat, They have oppressed me cruelly from my youth, but have not defeated me. Upon my back the plowmen have plowed long and deep furrows, but the Lord, who is just, has shattered the yoke of the wicked. May all who hate Zion be thrown into confusion. May they be like grass on the housetop, which withers before it springs up. No reaper fills his hand with it, no gatherers of sheaves fills his arm. Never shall the passer-by say of them, The blessing of the Lord be upon them. We bless you in the name of the Lord. John chapter 4, verse 31 to 54. In the meantime, the disciples urged Jesus, Master, have something to eat. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you do not know about. And the disciples wondered, Has anyone brought him food? Jesus said to them, My food is to do the will of the one who sent me and to carry out his work. You say that 4 more months and it will be the harvest. Now I say to you, look up and see the fields ripe and ready for harvesting. The reaper is already taking wages for his work, and the fruit is being gathered for eternal life, so that sower and reaper may rejoice together. Indeed, the saying holds truth. One sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap where you did not work. Others have worked, and you are now sharing the fruits of their labor. Many Samaritans in that time believed in him because they heard the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. So when they came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and Jesus stayed there for 2 days. After that, many more believed because of his own words, and they said to the woman, We no longer believe because of what you told us, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this is indeed the Savior of the world. When the 2 days were over, Jesus left for Galilee. Jesus himself said that no prophet is honored in his own country. Yet the Galileans welcomed him when he arrived because they had seen all the things he had done in Jerusalem during the festival, for they too had gone to the feast. The second sign at Cana. Jesus went back to Cana of Galilee, where he had changed the water into wine. Now at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill, And when he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him to come and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Jesus said, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." The official said, "Sir, come down before my child dies." And Jesus replied, "Go home, your son will live." The man had faith in the word that Jesus spoke to him and went his way. He was still on his way when his servants met him with the news that the boy had recovered. So he asked them at what hour the child had begun to recover, and they said to him, "The fever left him yesterday around the 7th hour." And the father realized that it was the time when Jesus told him, "Your son will live." And he became a believer along with all his household. This was the second miraculous sign Jesus performed after he returned from Judea to Galilee.